We'll call to order the Budget and Finance Committee for Monday, May 4, 2020. We are still operating remotely through a WebEx meeting. So the first thing we're going to do is need to take a roll call. Today we're going to try to do that through the WebEx functionality with raising hand. And we've got two members of the committee present in the chamber, Councilman Syracuse and Councilman Druffel may or may not be in the room. And other committee members who are online, please indicate your presence by using the raise hand function. I'll give you a second to get that pressed. All right, see Councilman Sledge, Councilmember Benedict, Councilmember Toombs, Councilmember Suara. Do you have those, Mr. Cooper? Taking a quick look at the list, see whether there's anybody present who didn't raise their hand. Looks like no other committee members. I will mention to everybody that due to the significant storms that came through yesterday, there are multiple council members who do not have power at home, including Councilman Druffel, Councilmember Syracuse, and me. We may not have great attendance today. Part of the emergency interim rules is that we do not require a quorum for the committee in order to proceed. So although this would not constitute a quorum on normal times, I don't think, do we have a quorum, Mr. Cooper?
We do, but we don't need one.
All right, so we actually do have one, just barely. So we'll go forward. Like the other meetings that we've done electronically, I'll need somebody to make the following motion. I make a motion that this committee meeting agenda constitutes essential business of the Metropolitan Council and that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Will somebody move that? Okay, it's been moved. Somebody want to second that?
Second.
All right, I heard a second. All in favor, unmute your mics and say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. So we will get going then. First item on the agenda is second substitute bill BL 2019-48, Rosenberg, Young, and others, amends the Metro Code of Laws relative to home occupation. And since I've got two committee members in the room due to power outages, I'm just going to look for you all to first and second the motion. We don't have to do that. So is there a motion?
I believe this one's to be deferred.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. I'm not sure whether there's a sponsor on. Mr. Cooper advises that the intent of the sponsor is to move to defer to the first meeting in June. However, if we don't have a sponsor present, is that?
Hey, Chair Mendez, this is Councilman Sledge. I'm on that bill as a sponsor. I'll make the motion to defer.
All right. So there's been a motion to defer to the first meeting in June. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion about that?
Mr. Chair, that would actually be the June public hearing, which will be the second Tuesday in June.
All right, thank you. Councilman Sledge, I assume that's your motion to the public hearing?
Yes, I'll amend my motion to the public hearing.
All right, so that'll be June 16th, is it June 9th? June 9th, that'll be June 9th. So let me see if I can get my head screwed on straight. So there's a motion to defer this to the public hearing in June, which will be Tuesday, June 9th. That's been moved and seconded. Seeing no additional discussion, All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We recommend the deferral till June 9th.
Chair,
Yes?
okay, this is Glover. I'm on the phone, so my computer's not working correctly.
Okay, Mr. Glover, Councilman Glover, thank you for letting me know that. I'm going to ask whether anybody else is participating just by telephone, just so I can know. If anybody else is participating only by phone, please speak up now. All right, Councilman Glover, I will try to go a bit slow before pulling the trigger on votes, and feel free to chime in, because obviously on the phone there's not the raise hand function. Does that work for you, Councilman?
Thank you, Chair.
All right,
Yeah, thank you.
all right, we'll move on to resolutions. Resolution RS 2020-202, Mendez, Murphy, and others, approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Public Works for signal maintenance for I-440 traffic operational deployment of Blue Toad Spectra over Ethernet PoE data collection devices. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion about this? I am, two hands. Council Member Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, good. I had asked to defer this just because we had never seemed to have all the right kinds of experts in the room at the same time. So concerns had been raised about privacy and about the language that describes the way they protected privacy was somewhat technical, and we just needed someone who could translate the removing the hash and the MAC numbers and say, yes, we are, as a Metro representative, I can state that I am comfortable that this protects our privacy and nothing is stored that we think could be used inappropriately later. So is there someone who can speak to that?
Mr. Cooper, do we have someone?
Councilman, this is Keith Durbin.
Go ahead, Mr. Durbin. Thank you.
So, Councilor Allen asked us to dig into this a little bit, and so ITS staff put together a set of questions around privacy and security that we submitted to the vendor. These were answered when we also gathered and reviewed the answers that had been previously provided, and we came up with the following. So we analyzed the security of the system. We spent a good deal of time talking with them. We looked at the security protocols they use, their hosting and Amazon Web Services, and some of the other kind of more sophisticated things, such as Councilor Allen talked about the hashing. And at the end of the day, without getting too deeply, we didn't have any issues with what they were doing. We felt it was satisfactory from a security perspective for the Blue Toad system. We also investigated the privacy implications, which I know have been a piece of this as well. And they stated on numerous occasions, as you all have heard, is they don't collect personally identifiable information, and that that their statements, they review the definition of PII as judged by a review of the statutes at the federal and state levels where they operate. They also comply and do a lot of business in California, and California is the state which has the highest bar for privacy, and Caltrans is a large client of theirs. Again, with the hashing, the mechanisms that they're using there, we were satisfied with that, and so from a privacy implications, we felt that it met the needs as we would see them. Some of the other implications around as well was we asked if there had been any breaches of their security. The answer is no. We also asked if anyone had ever subpoenaed the information, and the answer was no as well. And so ITS's position is that with all of this considered, we think that there is a really, really low risk that anyone could somehow get the data, which is presented to us in aggregate, but we feel low risk that anyone could get access to the data in detail illicitly, and then combine it with some other kind of data or analyze it to be able to identify individuals discreetly.
Councilmember,
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it greatly.
any other questions, Councilmember Allen?
No, that satisfies me. I appreciate all the work that's done on this. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Chair. So I was going through the questions that Mr. Irvin helped put together, which were very helpful. Which is, I think what continues to concern me is that there's a lot of questions that they can't answer fully because it hasn't happened yet. I'm referring to this being a public record, that there's been no legal request yet. There's been no subpoena yet. It's subject to wherever they're operating. I think the problem I continue to have with this is that we're talking a lot about risk assessment, but I just cannot see how the risks, I cannot see how the potential benefits, which I have yet to hear articulated in a way that's convincing to me, outweigh any potential risk of data breaches, of data being misused, of data being sold, or just data being collected and held, and we don't know exactly what it is. I have, I know members of Vanderbilt have reached out to several of us, including myself, to talk about how they were working through this program. Quite frankly, I think that Vanderbilt is a perfect pilot for this. They can determine how they want to look at things within their footprint. They can then come to us and say, hey, here's the experience we had. But I don't think they're far enough along enough to do that in a way that makes me feel comfortable that we should just go scale this up to the level that we're talking about. With that, I would move to defer this.
Councilman Sledge, I hate to do this after what I'm sure was a lovely set of comments, but in the chamber at least, it was difficult to understand what you were saying. I guess I want to ask another council member who's on the call whether they could hear what you were saying. So I'm going to ask Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In short, he is still distrustful and asked for, I believe, an indefinite deferral.
Okay, so y'all on the WebEx could hear him, and the problem was in the chamber. It sounds like, council member. Yeah, I've got a couple people texting me. All right, so Councilman Sledge, for whatever reason in the chamber, we had a little bit of a hard time, but I will take the motion for indefinite deferral. And is there a second for that? So far, I have not heard a second.
Second.
All right, so I've heard a second. Discussion on the idea of an indefinite deferral for RS 2020-202. Council Member Suara, I think you're next. Do you want to speak on the motion to defer?
Thank you, Chair. Just want to speak on the bill as a whole. I got the question and answers. They were very detailed. I just needed a little clarification, and it might be that I'm not that technical. It talks about ashing, and it talks about discarding what they don't need. Then it also talks about raw data that could be subpoenaed by law enforcement. I guess my question is, I understand it to be that ashing is where they take a lot of numbers and then reduce it to that 4 digits that is no longer identifiable. So the question that I have is, what is the time between the getting the raw data and the ashing to the point of discarding and storing? What does that time look like? Is this something that is done automatically, or is there a time lag between that process?
Mr. Durbin, do you have an answer for that?
So I know the vendor representatives were going to be at the Public Works Committee later on this afternoon, but my understanding from this research is all of that is done at the edge, meaning on the device that's hanging on a pole along 440. All of that happens there before it's transmitted into the central system.
Any additional questions, Councilmember Sorham?
No, if we can just get a confirmation of that, that there's no time lag, that would satisfy me. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion for an indefinite deferral that's been seconded, and I don't see anybody else in the queue. So we're going to be voting on a motion to defer indefinitely. All in favor of deferring indefinitely, we're going to try it by voice vote first. Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to indefinite deferral?
No.
All right, we have no's also. So what I'm going to ask, first, Councilman Suara, could you unraise your hand there? And then I'm going to ask all committee members that voted yes, because I'm not entirely, well, I'm going to ask Mr. Glover first, since he's doing it by voice. Mr. Glover, are you in favor of the indefinite deferral or opposed? Mr. Glover? All right, we'll come back to him.
Sorry, I was trying to get back. No, I was trying to get back on my phone because I had it muted. In favor.
All right, in favor of indefinite deferral, so that's one. Everybody else in favor of indefinite deferral, please use the raise hand function on WebEx. I see Councilmember Sledge, Councilmember Benedict. So that'd be 3 in favor, and Councilmember Porterfield, 4 in favor. And then if y'all could take your hands down, please.
Councilmember Mendez, I see more hands going up for the deferral.
5. All right, 5 in favor of deferral. And then if y'all take those hands down, please. I'm going to check with my 2 council members in the room. You guys in favor or all right. Mr. Druffler, you're in favor of indefinite deferral? All right. And Mr. Syracuse opposed? I'm opposed to indefinite deferral. Councilmember Allen is opposed. Anybody who's opposed, now raise your hands in WebEx. Allen, Toombs. Sir. Mr. Cooper, do you have the vote? 5 to 5? All right. So that means the motion for indefinite deferral fails, correct? All right. So now we're back on motion to approve that had been moved and seconded. Any further discussion about the motion to approve this item? I'm not seeing any hands up. So all in favor of recommending approval of RS 2020-202, use the raise hand function in WebEx to indicate voting yes. And I'm a yes on this. Looks like there's 4 yeses. Is that what you have, in addition to me? Is that what you have, Mr. Cooper? Yes. And
we should probably read those off just for the record.
all right, I'll read them. So the yeses are Mendez, Allen, Benedict, Syracuse, Toombs. And now, if y'all could lower your hands, and everybody who is voting against recommending approval, use the raise hand function. So we've got, the ones opposed are Druffel, Sledge, Porterfield, Swara, and Councilman Glover.
I'm a no.
Is that 5-5 also? All right, so that's 5-5. So there's no recommendation from the committee on RS 2020-202. Is that right, Mr. Cooper? All right. It took us 3 months to get no recommendation. Good job. Moving on to the next one. RS 2020-291, sponsor Mendez, appropriates to certain accounts for the benefit of Metro Nashville Fire Department, State Fair, District Attorney's Office, General Services Department, and Municipal Auditorium, $3,941,600, and reducing appropriations for tax increment payments to MDHA in the amount of $3,138,800. Is there a motion?
Move.
It's been moved and seconded, and there's a substitute here that I'll ask for a motion on that. It's been moved and seconded, and I'll ask Mr. Cooper to describe the substitute.
The substitute adds in some funding for the public defender. Under state law, whenever an appropriation is made for the district attorney's office, you must have at least a 75% equivalent appropriation for the public defender. That was inadvertently omitted when the resolution was filed, so it adds that relatively small amount back in.
Is there any discussion on the substitute?
So very quickly, Chair. So, Mr. Cooper, the dollar still remains the same, the $3.138 million.
No, it increases slightly. Hang on just a minute, and I'll pull the.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to bounce between 3 different places on this.
I can find it in the amendments packet here. Okay, so the new total would be $3,990,100. It adds in $48,500 for the public defender.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a typo that's twice says $3,999,000. It should be $999,000, both in the caption and in the body. So do we need an amendment to fix that?
We can. We have the document from finance, so we can make that change.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Porterfield?
My apologies. I didn't put my hand down.
Oh, no worries. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. We've got a motion to add the substitute. All in favor, say aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've added the substitute, and can I get a motion to move the resolution as substituted? That's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Allen, are you seeking to be recognized on this?
No, Chair, I forgot to lower my hand, sorry.
No worries. All right, seeing nobody in the queue, the resolution as substituted has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? we recommend approval. Next is Resolution RS 2020-292, sponsor Mendez calls the Metro Board of Equalization into regular session beginning on June 1, 2020, and special session beginning on June 15, 2020. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no discussion in the queue, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? We recommend approval. Resolution RS 2020-293, sponsor Mendez, approves the appointment of hearing officers by the Metro Board of Equalization to conduct preliminary hearings and to make investigations regarding complaints before the board. There's a motion. It's been properly seconded. Looking for discussion. Seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. Resolution RS 2020-294, sponsor Mendez, authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the Metro government's contract claim against Youth Opportunity Investments. There's a motion that's been properly seconded. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. So I know that the Department of Law has reached this settlement and that the juvenile court supports the Department of Law's recommendation here. I just want to point out that these private operators that are running our, in this case, juvenile detention facility and in other areas where we have private operators running detention facilities, this just is an example of the types of disruptions that our community can have, and that in this particular case, our children, they're in our custody to be rehabilitated, which we do very well through the juvenile system, in my opinion, but I also think that this is absolutely could have been prevented. So two things about that. One, in regards to the juvenile detention facility itself, we do need some upgrades there to make it more safe. However, this company, YOI, knew those circumstances and should have been able to prevent the incidents that took place in November of last year. So I will support this settlement, but I want to make sure that it's clear how, and I'll talk on the floor about it tomorrow night, that this is just very, more than disappointing that these actions were not taken in order for, that could have been taken to prevent the escapes that took place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Seeing nobody else in the queue on RS 2020-294, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. RS 2020-295, Mendez Pulley Welsh, approves Amendment 1 to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the Office of Family Safety for the Tennessee Human Trafficking Court Program, Cherish Hearts, which considers the needs of victim defendants and seeks to address those needs. There's a motion. It's been seconded. Seeing nobody in the queue, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. RS 2020-296, Mendez Welsh, approves Amendment 13 to a grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Metro Department of Finance to provide public assistance pursuant to Presidential Disaster Declaration number FEMA 1909DR-TN to complete repairs and/or replacement to facilities damaged during April and May 2010. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, we recommend approval. Resolution RS 2020-298, Mendez, Hager, and others, accepts a grant from the Tennessee State Library and Archives to the Metro Nashville Public Library to provide access to and circulation of special materials formatted for individuals who are hearing impaired. There's a motion that's been seconded. Seeing nobody in the queue, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. Our Resolution RS 2020-300, Mendez, Pulley, and others approves a contract between the Metro government and American Heart Association to provide CPR, first aid, and emergency cardiovascular care educational training materials for the Nashville Fire Department. There's a motion. It's been seconded. Seeing nobody in the queue, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. Resolution RS 2020-301, Mendez, Pulley, and others approves Amendment 1 to a contract between the Metro government and ImageTrend, Inc. to provide EMS and fire department data collection and reporting software. It's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to find out what the adjustments are, because I remember when we were discussing the original contract a while back in January, I had asked a question. There was an audit that was done, and it shows that the ImageTrend software was not capturing some data. I think it was something like it doesn't have an audit trail, it doesn't have all the codes. And I asked specifically at that time if we did look into the new contract, if everything, according to that audit finding, was addressed. My understanding was that yes. So I'm trying to figure out if everything was addressed at that time, what are the new things that we're trying to address now, especially since we went through all of that with the original contract.
Right from the fire department on the call, like Leanne Burchell.
Looks like we have somebody from the fire department on the call. Can you address Councilmember Suarez's question?
This is Leanne Burchell from the fire department.
Were you able to hear Councilmember Suarez's question?
It was cutting in and out. Could you please repeat the question, please?
Councilmember Suarez?
Yes, thank you. My question was, when we got the original contract in January, I had referenced some audit findings about the software not providing the data that was needed. My understanding at the time was that all of that was being reviewed, and everything, including having the code, the published code, having the audit trails, that everything was addressed in that contract in January. My question is, now there's an amendment to add to something else that it wasn't being done. I'm trying to find out what are the new things that we're finding out, and is this something new to what we had in January? If you can tell me specifically what those were. I was just wondering because we talked about it at length in January, and there was assurance that everything was covered then.
Yes, this amendment is unrelated to the audit issues. All those audit issues were resolved. This amendment is actually for the health departments. They can start utilizing the software.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bergtel and Councilmember Suara. Seeing nobody else in the queue, we're about to vote on RS 2020-301. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. RS 2020-302, Mendez, Pulley, and others, approves an application for a Victims of Crime Act grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration, Office of Criminal Justice Programs, to the Metro Nashville Police Department to fund counselor and victim advocate positions to provide mental health services, support services, and criminal justice system advocacy. There's a motion. It's been seconded. Seeing nobody in the queue, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. RS 2020-303, Mendez, Pulley, and others, approves an application for a 2020 coronavirus emergency supplement funding program grant from the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, to Metro Nashville Police Department to support a broad range of activities, including preventing, preparing for, and responding to the coronavirus. There's a motion and a second.
Take the next one together. They're the same.
And I'm advised we can handle the next one together, so I'm going to read the caption of the next one and get a motion on that too. Next one is Resolution RS 2020-304, Mendez, Pulley, and others accepts a 2020 coronavirus emergency supplement funding program grant from the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, to Metro Nashville Police Department to support a broad range of activities, including preventing, preparing for, and responding to the coronavirus. There's a motion and second on that one too. Take a quick look to see whether there's any discussion. Seeing none, we're voting on Resolution 303 and 304. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval on both of these resolutions. Resolution RS 2020-305, Rosenberg, Mendez, and others, approves a railroad agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation, the Metro Department of Public Works, and CSX Transportation, Inc. for the resurfacing and safety upgrades. There's a motion and second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, we recommend approval. RS 2020-306, sponsor Mendez, authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the property damage claim of Bell South Telecommunications LLC, doing business as AT&T Tennessee, against the Metro government in the amount of $23,000. It's been moved. There's a second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. Resolution RS 2020-308, sponsor Glover, requests credit of all property and business taxes paid in advance or coming due for any period that a business or person requiring such is unable to operate or work in their business due to government shutdowns caused by the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there a motion?
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion. There's a second. Mr. Glover, I'm assuming you'd like to comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, while it's non-binding, I think it might be nice because small businesses throughout Middle Tennessee, and especially here in Nashville, have really taken it hard. And so therefore, until they can get back into business, I don't think it's right for us to be charging property taxes. I don't think there'd be any credits. I think it would end up being I don't doubt anybody's paid anything in advance, but that they be credited, once their tax bills become due for this period of time, that they've not been able to open their doors and do business and actually have revenues streaming through their business.
Thank you, Councilman Glover. Councilman Suara?
you, Chair. I love the intent of the bill, and I can see it with the business taxes. I guess my only question is that from everything that we know, the state really doesn't let us do anything with property taxes. So would we be able to do this? Because everything that I've heard that relates to property taxes, credit, give back is preempted by the state and set by the state. So can we do this? Can John answer that?
Mr. Cooper?
Oh, Mr. Cooper.
There are no mechanisms under state law that would allow some kind of a credit or waiver or anything for property taxes. The resolution also refers to Metro refunding money to landlords who provided a credit for rent. There's also no mechanism under state law for making refund payments to businesses. Metro can make grants to nonprofits, but cannot make direct payments to businesses in that manner.
Councilmember Suara, any further questions?
No question. I guess if we pass this, it would just be to show our support of businesses and what they're going through, but we would not be able to enforce it. Is that correct?
That's what I heard Mr. Cooper say, but I'll ask him.
That is correct. There's one phrase in Section 2 of the resolution that states that the Metropolitan Council encourages all landlords to provide a credit to be refunded by Metro Nashville to those landlords. As long as everyone understands that we likely wouldn't have the authority to refund credits to landlords, I guess the downside could be that it created some expectation on the part of landlords, but we couldn't provide that.
Councilmember Suara?
No, thank you. Like I said, I like the intentions of the bill. I just wanted to clarify what we can or cannot do. Thank you.
Councilmember Glover, do you have anything else you'd like to add on this?
Mr. Cooper's exactly right. It is non-binding. We don't have the authority, but I do think it's nice that if we show unity to our small business community, because we need to get back up and operating, because I talk to them every day, and financially, they're really hurting badly right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also certainly appreciate the intent of this bill resolution. I wonder if perhaps we could defer it and craft the language a little bit more to show that unity without creating any false expectations. I have a little bit of concern with that, and would like to be supportive, but am a little concerned with some of the wording, and wonder if maybe we could finesse it a little bit and then be able to support it more confidently.
So, Councilmember Allen, are you making a motion, or are you asking the sponsor to consider that?
I'd like to ask the sponsor to consider that.
Councilman Glover?
Yeah. All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And so, obviously, it being non-binding, with that, then, Chair, I will move to defer to our next meeting, and it'll automatically be re-referred to the committee. And so if I could, perhaps we could have any suggestions flowed through Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, would that be the best way to do this?
Yes, sir.
All right. So if we can do that, then, Chair, yes, I'm not opposed. So I will move to defer one meeting.
All right. There's a motion to defer one meeting. There's been a second. I'm not seeing anybody else in the queue. All in favor of a one-meeting deferral, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend the one-meeting deferral. Thank you. All right, moving on to bills on second reading. First one is BL 2020-184, Sledge, Nash, and others, amends the Metro Code to require contracts procured through an invitation to bid process to become effective no later than 30 days after the award is made. Councilman Sledge?
Motion for indefinite deferral.
So there's been a motion to indefinitely defer. There's a second on that. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend an indefinite deferral. Bill BL 2020-276, Hall, Vercher, others, amends the Metro Code to establish a development impact fee. Is there a motion? There's a motion, and there's seconded. Check for discussion. Mr. Glover?
Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Glover.
Yes. Mr. Cooper, can you help so where we understand this a little more diligently as to what the actual impact of this would be?
If it was approved in this form, the actual impact at present would be that it could not be implemented or enforced because we do not yet have the authority from the state to do that. There was a bill pending at the state this session that would have allowed Metro to impose an impact fee, but that did not pass in subcommittee. And under the County Powers Relief Act, we are expressly preempted from imposing an impact fee unless we meet certain population thresholds. Has to be a 20% increase in between the 10-year census or I think a 10% increase over 4 years, and we have not met those thresholds yet.
Okay, so then the relevance of this, even if we pass it, it's irrelevant?
I can't speak for Metro Legal, but I expect that they would instruct the codes department that they could not impose the fee.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Council Member Toon.
Chair?
Go ahead.
I don't know if you can hear me now. I was having trouble getting in. This is Councilman Hall.
All right. Are you on phone or using what?
Well,
Councilman Hall, are you on phone or WebEx?
I'm looking right at y'all, but I'm using my phone. I had to be mobile too, lack of internet and power in part of my district, so I had to do it from my phone while I'm driving here. Well, I'm not driving. I pulled over.
All right. Let me, if you don't mind, let me hear from the committee members, and then we'll give you a chance to talk about your bill.
Please. Go ahead.
Councilmember Toombs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question for Mr. Cooper, I was looking at the analysis, and I understand that currently state law does not prohibit, allow Davidson County to have a development impact fee. But part of the, oh my gosh, I'm tongue-tied. Part of the analysis was that legal felt that courts wouldn't find a sufficient nexus between the development paying the impact fee and the use of the funds. And I'm thinking about the recent litigation with Williamson County where that same argument was made, and the court found that there was a nexus, and this is essentially the same thing. And the court makes a lot of reference to other cases where there's been a development impact fee and developers have made that argument that there isn't sufficient nexus. So what about this makes you think, Mr. Cooper, that there isn't a sufficient nexus?
I think it's the part that's related specifically to going to schools within a particular economic area. I think that may be an issue. The infrastructure, certainly there would be a nexus there, or would likely be a nexus. But I think it's the priority school limitation that possibly could be an issue.
Okay.
Any additional? Go ahead.
Another question would be, would it be possible to amend the bill to push out the effective date so that there is an opportunity to revisit the bill in the state legislature?
I mean, yes, the bill could be amended to put a delayed effective date.
Okay. That's all I have for now, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this may be a question for the sponsor. And then I have one for Mr. Cooper as well. If we somehow meet the population growth by the next census or something, and we aren't able to do this, it seems like a pretty detailed study by a number of metro departments would be helpful to help determine what the fee should be and how it might be directed. And so my question would be if the sponsors have had the opportunity to work with the departments to get their input on, number one, what they think those fees should be, and if they haven't, if it would make sense to defer this while we wait for the census data for the state to catch up with us, and then possibly in that interim to do some research with the relevant departments to have their input on how this might be implemented.
Councilman Hall?
So in terms of, just real quick to touch on Councilmember Toon's comments, that was one of the things that was being discussed to adjust that date because it did pass in the Senate, but not in the House. And by the House sponsor, Mr. Jernigan said he was bringing it back in January, the first of the year. So we want to be able to amend that language and address that effective date so that process can continue to play out. In terms of the population growth between census, we've grown almost 12%, but I would challenge, as has happened in other counties, that stipulation that was placed on us with a 20% growth during census tract was that it would be an unreasonable metric to be placed on Davidson County outside of an individual pandemic or some major disaster that would force populations to leave a neighboring state. No major municipality has grown by 20% anywhere in the U.S. in the last 20 years. It works for smaller counties that you could use that metric. But being that 84 out of 95 Tennessee counties already have this, it's not applicable to them. So in addition, on the third point, in terms of department studies, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't want to reinvent the wheel. What works in Williamson County, Wilson County, Rutherford County, and the other surrounding counties that are already currently using these impact fees is they've generated those fees and used it for the same thing. Education and infrastructure. I am not opposed to adjusting that language, which has again been part of the conversation in terms of priority schools and just saying metro schools. But those are the things that those funds are going to in those other counties, and it's worked perfectly for them. Those are our greatest needs here in metro. And so to that point, I'm not opposed to having conversations with departments, but that's not something that would weigh heavily on or impact the legislation itself because we've already got years of examples from these surrounding counties, both with legal cases and with the structure and how it's worked, how the money's been paid out down the line. So I'm cautious not to try to reinvent the wheel here and do something different than the other counties are already doing effectively. Thank you.
Councilmember Allen, any follow-up?
Thank you. I'm appreciative that we've looked at best practices in surrounding counties. That's good input as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, just real quickly, there's a reason why, as you're well aware and aided greatly in that conversation, why the state comptroller, the finance director, and this administration all went when that House bill was being discussed and attempted to have these impact fees, the ability to do the impact fee. But one of the things that was also mentioned when they went to ask for this exact same thing was, where was the council on this, and why wasn't the council the one to do it first or simultaneously? And so we know there's going to be support for this. We know that there's massive public support for this. So when you have the public and the administration attempting and asking for the same thing, I get the concept of preemption very well, but I think that with some minor tweaks to language and changing that effective date to include or to allow for the process at the state level to work out, that this is exactly the way we need to go, because we're in an unprecedented time with an unprecedented deficit. And the new normal going into this next year, post-COVID-19 and continued storms, because there was a lot of storm damage last night throughout the area, we have to look not only for new revenue streams, but we've got to make sure that per that same resolution that we unanimously passed at the beginning of the term, talking about inclusion and equity, this is a conversation about equity where we're asking the majority of the city who has not benefited from this boom and this growth that the city has, sustained here for the last few years, that 130% population growth downtown, that jumped from 50 to 72,000 employees downtown. The majority of the city has not benefited from that, nor did it mismanage the funds. And so now we're asking the taxpayers to take a massive property tax increase, but we're not willing to ask developers to pay who benefited to share the burden with those taxpayers. I think we need to be very mindful of how we balance that with the concerns about preemption.
All right, so there were more people in the queue, Councilman Hall, so I'm going to go back to the queue. Councilman Druffel?
Yeah,
I think, Mr. Druffel, with you in the room, I'm going to be turning on your mic for you to use as opposed to using your computer.
Hear me?
Yep.
Okay. 100% agree. We got to show the intentions of finding alternative sources, even if we have to defer or reword this. But I think I hear from constituents every day that they're looking for alternative options, and we got to show that we as a body are ready to make a decision to go ahead. Even if the state preempts us, at least we're showing our intentions to move forward. Thank you.
Council Member Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. So I think this is an excellent step in the right direction. And to the last comment that the sponsor made, we have asked Nashvillians to do many things while we've had people lining their pockets with the development and that they're able to do. So it's important that, to me, that we support anything that will take some of the burden off of taxpayers' backs and put it in the put it on the backs of those who are profiting at the expense of the community. Thank you.
Thanks. I would like to ask Mr. Cooper whether this is amendable on third reading.
It would, no, since it's, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that it is the equivalent of a tax. It's listed as a fee, but the rule amending on third reading is specific to tax measures. And it may also include revenue service charges under the new rules. So in that case, it would be, I forgot that was added, it would be amendable on third.
All right, so it is amendable on third. So my request for the sponsor, I guess I don't know whether I've got the right to ask for a request, but if we're gonna pass something that's immediately preempted, it would be nice if it were fully baked and able to be administered on day one, including a delayed implementation date. And I do think Councilmember Allen raises a good point about what happens if we're the dog that catches the bus and all of a sudden we have impact fees. We don't need to start engaging in a complicated debate at that time about what we're going to do with the money. And so any legal issues or delayed implementation date, I personally, as chair of this committee, would encourage that we get that right. And I'll leave it up to the sponsor, while not a member of the committee, to let us know whether he's interested in trying to pass this on second reading or keep working on it and deferring to give a chance to get it more fully baked. Mr. Hall?
Absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask if it would be possible for you to make a motion to defer one meeting so that we can adjust those 3 points of language in the legislation.
All right. Before I ask for that motion, well, that I won't tell the committee what to do. I think with the budget going on, I think that's a tall order, but I'll leave it open to the committee to, the request from the sponsor has been to move for a one meeting deferral.
Second.
Well, we need a motion first. Mr. Druffel, you're moving for the one meeting deferral?
Yes, I move for a one meeting deferral.
All right, is there a second for that?
A second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second for a one meeting deferral. There's a couple hands up. Council Member Syracuse, you wish to speak on the motion of her? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I guess, procedurally, even if we were to defer this one meeting and update some of the language, my understanding is it would still be not a piece of legislation, if enacted and signed by the mayor and all, that we could even enact. So does it procedurally make more sense to indefinitely defer this until we know that the state's going to authorize us to be able to do this and then bring it back? I fully support the intent of this, but I think, like we've talked about, I want this to be successful. So that's my question on what efficacy a one meeting deferral would bring. Thank you.
I'm going to interpret that as a question for our counsel, Mr. Cooper. Pros and cons of one meeting deferral versus waiting for state action.
I think given the situation that we're in, where we're working remotely, collaboration is difficult here in the office. So I don't know if we would be able to work with Metro Legal to get language done in 2 weeks or not. We can certainly try, but I don't know for sure if we can have that fully baked.
Thank you. Councilmember Druffel, do you wish to speak on the motion to defer?
Yeah, can I recommend a two-meeting deferral? Would that be adequate time?
Are you asking the sponsor first?
Yes. Councilman Hall?
Councilman Hall, thoughts on that?
I'm not opposed to it. I do believe it can be done in one because the conversations that we've been having already have lined up the 3 points that need to be changed, and the effective date would take care of the point that Councilman Syracuse just mentioned. Because like with the equal business opportunity legislation, they've had a 180-day start date. That's more than enough time, adding something along those lines to allow for the state legislature to do what it needs to do. So really it's only outside of that, the 2 points, the adjusting of the priority schools component, and then I can give specific numbers if need be because of looking at best practices from other counties in terms of how the money should be utilized and what that would look like exactly. So I do believe one meeting would be more than enough time to be able to do that, considering what needs to be adjusted in the language.
Councilman Druffel, it's your motion. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I defer and like to hear back from Mr. Cooper on your confidence in one meeting versus two meetings, because I think the language of this is paramount to doing it right. Is it really going to make a difference in the long term since we're preempted? Personally, I'd prefer to get it done, but I would also want to get it done right. So, Mr. Cooper, your thoughts?
I'm actually texting with Metro Legal right now. I will work with them to the best of my ability to try and get something back in, and I guess it would be less than 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks. So we'll try and have something. It is a complicated issue, and the specifics as to the use of funds could be complicated, but I will work with Metro Legal and see what we can get done.
I would just ask the sponsor, does it matter that much to do it within 2 weeks or 4 weeks, knowing that we may be pushing some of the technical format and required pieces to do it right? Intentionally, I am completely on board with this. I'm just wanting to make sure that as we move forward, we have everything together. So, Councilman Hall.
Councilman Hall.
Councilman Druffel, I appreciate that. I do have confidence in Metro Legal, but just for the sake of comfort, and with the caveat of we are tracking along with the other budget conversation, because as we approach having to vote on a property tax increase, we absolutely need the public to feel confident we are exhausting all other avenues and looking at every other option to go along with that, especially since as much as of a hike this is property tax is going to be, it's still not going to get us all the way to where we need to be, and they're still going to need additional revenue. So I have no problem saying 2 meetings. If you could make that motion, then I believe we will be in good shape.
Then I would like to make a motion that we defer this 2 meetings.
So Councilmember Druffel is amending his motion to defer for 2 meetings. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All right, so now there's a motion to defer this on second reading for 2 meetings. I see 2 hands up from folks in the room. I assume that'll come down. Councilmember Porterfield. Councilmember Porterfield. If you're trying to speak, you're on mute still. Councilmember Syracuse, anything on this?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I just want to confirm that, okay, the motion here is to defer 2 meetings, but I'm still believing, my understanding is that we are looking to put a date past when we believe the state legislature would possibly pass this. Is that correct? We're presuming by putting a date down the road that the state legislature is going to pass this. Is that correct, Mr. Cooper?
I think Mr. Cooper can clarify, but I'm understanding that one of the intended amendments would be automatically effectuating. If the state ever makes this legal, then this will kick in. That's the way I understood the conversation.
Yeah, we will talk with the sponsor about how he wants the delayed effective date language to read. I don't know if we could make it conditional or not upon the state acting. We could certainly set it out far enough in advance, but we'll work on that.
Okay, thank you. Again, I support the sponsor and his intent. I just want to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success. But I'll support the motion for 2 meeting deferral. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Porterfield, any comments on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I apologize if this was already discussed. My computer video and audio froze up for just a few minutes there, so I missed a little bit of the conversation. Thank you so much to the sponsor. I think this is really important legislation. I did have some questions and concerns around state preemption, so thank you so much for clarifying that information. My only question is, what happens if we pass this, and I definitely support this legislation, what happens if we pass this and the state does not allow us to do the impact fee? What then happens to this legislation?
If the state does not give us the authority to implement it, then it would, my supposition is that codes would be advised by Metro Legal not to charge the fee. So it would be on the books but not implemented, basically.
Thank you so much, Attorney Cooper. I am supporting this legislation. Again, thank you so much, Councilman Hall. I think it's good legislation, so thank you.
All right, we have pending a motion to defer BL 2020-276 for 2 meetings.
Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Glover.
So, Mr. Cooper, let me ask a question, if I may. Given that the state's coming back in, and I don't know if they're going to do committee or if they're going to bring the full, if they're going to, reconvene everyone because all they did was recess it. But however they do that, then would this give enough time, number one, and then number two, I guess the question would be to the sponsor, does it also give enough time to talk to the state on the House side to be able to determine a date that we feel like might be effective?
Councilmember Hall?
Yeah, and I've been in constant conversation with the sponsor in the House, Mr. Jernigan, State Rep Harold Love, State Rep Vincent Dixie, Senator Yarborough, about having this back on as soon as they get back in. They've made a few adjustments, and one of the issues that they themselves were having in the House was they were hoping that we would pass something here so that the question that was asked to the mayor and finance director a short time ago, which was, where's the council on this and are they on board, that they would be able to say they have support from us at the local level. And so they are pushing to have this back on in January. Like I said, the bill that Senator Steve Davidson did pass in the Senate, and we're just hoping to get it back on and passed in the House. The Senate bill was SB 2908, and that House bill was House Bill 2013. But I have been in constant conversation with those in the State House about that. And if we do what they're asking us to do on our end, they would hope that we would have the State Comptroller, Finance Director, and Mayor come back with legislation in hand to support their efforts.
All right, thank you. That answers my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. All right, we have a motion to defer for 2 meetings. There's a second. There's nobody else in the queue. All in favor of recommending the 2-meeting deferral, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend the 2-meeting deferral. Last item on the agenda, BL 2020-278, Benedict, Mendez, and others, approves a lease agreement between the Metro government and City Road Chapel United Methodist Church for office space at 701 Gallatin Pike South, Madison, Tennessee. There's a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Hearing none, we recommend approval. Before I gavel us out, just a quick reminder about some upcoming budget process dates and times. The departmental hearings are going to start the week of May 11th and continue into the week of May 18th. You all should have the calendar of those hearings in your inbox. The public hearing, where we'll have the public comment on the operating budget and the capital improvements budget will be June 2nd. Right now, plans are being made to be able to conduct that remotely and electronically. I guess we really don't know how it's really going to happen, but plans are being made to be able to do it electronically. Any council member that has questions about the budget between now and when we discuss it substantively at the end of May should send those questions to Maria or Austin in the council office, where they'll gather the questions, combine common questions, get answers as promptly as possible. We've also put up in the last couple business days website on the Metro Council resources page, where we will keep track of all the information. So far, it's the budget, the mayor's presentation, the finance department's presentation, the tax levy. Those documents are up there. By the end of Thursday, we should be able to have all the department responses to the initial questions I gave them posted online. And as we gather more information through the budget process, that will be the one-stop shopping to get the information. In addition to that, after the budget presentation last week, I was reminded that I had always planned on having a introduction session, especially for new council members, about how to approach the budget. Given crazy COVID-19 events, that fell off my radar, but I was reminded of that last week. So we're going to have a session on Thursday at 4 o'clock. It's going to be designed to at least share how I think about approaching the budget document, not what it means as far as substance about what I think about the tax rate, but really just how to understand the budget document, the finance department presentation, the budget book, when you get it at the end of this week. So that'll be 4 o'clock. We're going to aim for 90 minutes. Mr. Cooper and I will be here in the chamber. Everybody's invited to attend it. It'll be broadcast out on WebEx. And before I let everybody go, if there are any questions about the budget process, not the budget itself, but the process, go ahead and raise your hand now. Otherwise, we will be done. Taking a quick look through.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Mr. Cooper, with regards to if we had to do electronic public hearing, et cetera, what is the ruling with regards to the governor's executive order that's set to expire here in the next week or so on those? What is the thought process there?
I have been advised by numerous people who have been in communication with the governor's office that there will be an extension of that order.
Okay.
I don't know the particulars of that, but it is set to expire on May 18th, but we are told that there will be an extension.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chair.
And just to share with the committee what I've heard on that front too, and I mean, I guess it's a little bit of tea leave reading, but I've heard that we should expect that the extension will basically allow legislative bodies, at least in Davidson County, to continue to meet remotely if that's required to meet local public health orders, is what I understand. But that's, again, what I've heard secondhand. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you just speak real briefly about the process of substitute budget versus amendments to substitute budget versus second, third, and fourth substitute budgets, and what a good process could look like? All right, so... or what a bad process. Either one of those would be helpful to know, what we want to avoid.
So I understand that historically speaking, in Metro, the last 2 years have been anomalous. Most times, most years, there's a substitute budget. So you have the mayor's budget, and then you have a substitute proposed by the Budget and Finance Committee chair. And I'm going to talk about what has happened 50-plus years out of the history of Metro, and then I'm going to talk about the last couple of years. The rules evolved over time before last term for quite some time to guide the process to have the mayor's proposed budget and a substitute. And the main enforcement mechanism in our rules, which we've passed again, is that when you talk about amending budgets, people can offer amendments on the mayor's budget. People can offer amendments on the Budget and Finance Committee chair's substitute, but any additional substitutes beyond that are take it or leave it. No amendments allowed, and that's been baked into the rules for a long time. Over the last, and that's 50-plus years of the history of Metro, that's the way it's been. The last couple of years, 2 years ago, there was a second substitute, so a total of 3 budgets, the mayor's, the first substitute, the second substitute, and then last year it got up to 5 or 6 total budgets. I think we were up to 4 or 5 substitutes. And so everything beyond the first 2, no amendments allowed. Take it or leave it, voting up or down. This year, it is on Finance's mind that if this trend continues, 50-plus years of 2 budgets and then a third one and then 5 or 6, if that ends up going to 5 or 6 again or 10, then they run out of time. And they're all working remotely also. So Finance is interested this year in setting a hard deadline that after a certain date, they're not going to work on additional substitutes. And in reality, that's what happened last year, Councilmember Allen. The substitutes that were offered in the last 3-4 days before our third reading vote, Finance basically said, we're not working on those. And the council office staff put together, I think, the 4th, the 5th, and if there was a 6th budget. So Finance, in an effort to make sure that if somebody wants to propose an additional substitute beyond the mayor's proposed budget and the one that I'll propose if I propose a different one, that the information has to be in to the council office, to Mr. Cooper, by May 13 at 4:30 in the afternoon, I believe. And Mr. Cooper had an email last week, Thursday or Friday, I can't remember, that outlined the parameters of what anybody who wishes to have an additional substitute would have to meet in order for Finance to go ahead and work on it. And I know I've rambled a bit, but I think that covers everything in your question, Council Member.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was helpful.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
May I add a little more history? So, actually, there have been additional substitutes made prior to the last couple of years. They were done back several years ago. There was always allowed 2. And then last year, I tried to put in amendments, and I was instructed the amendment, like we couldn't do that, it now would have to be a substitute. So the rules kind of changed. So I don't really care which way it goes. However, there was always allowed to be 2 substitutes, realizing you could amend the mayor and realizing you could amend the chair's Budget and Finance's substitute budget. The other one was just pure up or down. Everything else was always handled as amendments. So with that in mind, I just really wish we could be clear on exactly how it's supposed to operate, and if we need to change it in the rules or however we move forward. But with a significant potential of a tax increase, with the amount that's being asked for, I think clarity would be an extremely important thing. And the one thing that bothers me about the timeline, and while I appreciate everybody's working remotely, what bothers me about the timeline is these additional substitutes are due, and I would assume that's all substitutes are due on that May 13th or 15th. I can't remember the exact date, but I know it's coming up next week. So, but so this wasn't brand new. It's happened multiple times over our history. Thank you.
And that raises a good point. As I understood last year, the borderline between what kind of change constituted an amendment and what kind of change constituted a substitute is that if you're keeping the revenue, meaning the tax rate, the same, and you're just moving money from one expense category to another expense category, that's going to be considered an amendment every single time. If you are changing the revenue, meaning changing the tax rate, that ends up changing dozens and dozens of numbers through the course of the 30-page budget, and any change to tax rate is almost certainly going to be considered by, I think, Mr. Cooper and legal as requiring a substitute. Is that right, Mr. Cooper?
It depends on what the change in tax levy was being used for. Like if it was all going to schools or something, you could probably do that by amendment. But it's when you start changing multiple line items that it gets confusing doing it by amendment.
All right. If anybody has, because and just to be clear, the date that was in Mr. Cooper's email is 100% generated by finance. In fact, I asked for there not to be a date, and finance said there needs to be a date, and so the date is coming up next week. If anybody has questions about this and whether changes they're thinking about would constitute a substitute and they want to take a crack at putting together a substitute budget, I would strongly encourage an immediate conversation with Council Director Cooper to make sure that you are on track and not caught past that deadline from finance. All right, thank you, everybody. Seeing nobody else in the queue, that'll be the end of our Budget and Finance Committee meeting.